Think back for a moment to a random memory of yours. It could be your very first memory, or something that happened last week. How did it affect you? Probably very significantly, because whether they're big or small, our memories help shape us into who we are today. Now imagine if right now, you forgot them. The sights, smells, and people associated with them completely banished from your consciousness. How would that affect your life? You can no longer remember the name of that song you like, or where that photo was taken, or even the names of your own family. The world has become a deeply chaotic and scary place. Your memories, which were an anchor in the sea of confusion, can no longer help you. You strictly live in the present, taking in things as they come, with no knowledge of them kept with you afterwards. Your memories are gone, and with them, your personality as well. The phenomenon I just spoke of is the horrific consequence of Alzheimer's disease, a medical condition where the brain develops heavy plaque buildup, causing the subject to lose even their most cherished memories and knowledge. 1 to 6 people develop Alzheimer's later on in their life, usually around the age of 80. While it is preventable, it is currently impossible to halt it completely. It can begin as soon as the age of 40, but will not show signs until much later in someone's life. In the media, Alzheimer's is often portrayed as a simple quirk of the aging process, and is used for jokes where older characters will forget important things. Very few pieces of media actually treat the disease like what it actually is, a horrific illness. Enter Everywhere at the End of Time, a 6.5-hour long music album by British musician James Leyland Kirby, which takes a listener through the 6 stages of Alzheimer's disease. The samples used are all songs dating from the 1890s to 1940s, and slowly distorts them, as if they're decaying memories. I will be explaining the 6 stages one by one, giving my take on them as we go. So without further ado, here is an analysis of Everywhere at the End of Time. The first stage's music seems normal enough, not mentioning the lack of lyrics in any of the songs, but something seems sort of off with the music. Not enough that it's unpleasant, but enough that it's noticeable. The description states, "Here we experience the first signs of memory loss. This stage is most like a beautiful daydream, the glory of old age and recollection, the last of the great days." There's a graininess to the audio and a low reverb present in many songs. In certain songs with vocals, the voice feels hollow and echoey. Listening to this first stage feels like looking back on a fond memory, with some slightly dark undertones. The moment stage 2 begins, there is a noticeable difference in tone. The description reads, "The second stage is the self-realization and awareness that something is wrong, with a refusal to accept that. More effort is made to remember, so memories can be more long-form with a little more deterioration in quality. The overall personal mood is generally lower than the first stage, and at a point before confusion starts setting in. Throughout the very first song, there is a horrible swooshing sound, not unlike that of old wax cylinder records from the late 1800s. In this song, however, it is extremely loud, almost overtaking the music in parts. As the stage continues, it becomes increasingly obvious that something is very, very wrong with this music. Everything is either somber or staticky, to the point where it often becomes depressing. The entire stage is a very dark and sinister undertone, and the haunting vocals in some songs are enough to make the listener very uncomfortable. Stage 3 is where the major shift happens in the tone of the album. The description states, "Here, we are presented with some of the last coherent memories before confusion fully rolls in, and the gray mists form and fade away. Finest moments have been remembered, and the musical flow in some places is more confused and tangled. As we progress, some singular memories become more disturbed, isolated, broken, and distant. These are the last embers of awareness before we enter the post-awareness stages. The dark undertones of the previous songs now take center stage, and the many songs present in the album are anxiety-inducing, butchered versions of the actual songs. The oldest song in the stage is Bewildered in Other Eyes, also known as the prettiest little song of all. Take a listen. The sample was recorded in the early 1900s and possibly symbolizes the oldest memory of the subject. It's safe to say Stage 3 is where the true horror of Alzheimer's is realized, and unfortunately, it only gets worse from here. Stage 4 is one of the most disturbing stages in the collection. It's an incoherent mess of jumbled instruments. The stage description reads, "Post-awareness stage 4 is where serenity and the ability to recall singular memories gives way to confusions and horror. It's the beginning of an eventual process, where all memories begin to become more fluid through entanglements, repetition, and rupture." All the music, if you can even call it that, sounds like if sheet music went through a paper shredder and someone tried to play it. It's completely random and confusing. The only song in the stage that contains any sort of chord progression is a portion nicknamed the Hell Sirens. Here's why. This piece sounds like a memory of World War II, possibly a PTSD episode, although this has not been confirmed by Kirby himself. To many a casual listener, this track sounds like the popular droning sounds used in horror films to create suspense, but actually, it is the song Granada, slowed down to a ridiculous degree. If this isn't nightmarish enough, there are still 2 stages left, and the downward spiral continues. Stage 5 starts off strong, hitting your ears like a truck. The confusion present in Stage 4 is now so incomprehensible that the listener would need an ear like Mozart to find anything salvageable. The stage description is just as cryptic as the music, reading, "Post-awareness Stage 5 confusions and horror. More extreme entanglements, repetition, and rupture can give way to calmer moments. The unfamiliar may sound and feel familiar. Time is often spent only in the moment, leading to isolation." This stage introduces an element that was not present in the previous, voices. Throughout the stage, various garbled voices can be heard. It's around this stage in Alzheimer's where the subject begins to experience delusions and hallucinations that can be quite frightening. At one point in Stage 5, you can hear a voice saying, Mr. James Fitzgerald will then proceed to play a mandolin solo. What's interesting about this section is that a mandolin never once plays before this part in the album, suggesting it's a false memory or delusion. Randomly mixed into the chaos of the calmer moments the description speaks of. During these sections, the music suddenly returns to that of Stage 1 or 2, coherent and safe. Unfortunately, these happy moments never last long enough before you're thrusted back into the chaotic, noisy abyss. Finally, we reach Stage 6. This is the final installment in the album, and while chaotic, is more like that of an echoey cavern. Unfortunately, even the description isn't helpful in navigating this fever dream, simply stating, Stage 6 is without description. The feeling of isolation this stage represents isn't scary like the last few, it's just depressing. There's no loud noises, no distorted voices, just silent droning. This is usually the point where most listeners break down. There's an overwhelming melancholy that overtakes you to the point of sadness. For almost 2 hours, this goes on without rest. That is until the final song. Place in the World fades away as a sight for sore eyes. The final track is completely coherent. There isn't any distortion or strange skipping. It's just a song, plain and simple. This song marks the end of the listener's painful journey, and for Kirby, marks the end of the Caretaker name. It's a callback to the very beginning of the Caretaker's life. The out-of-place coherence of the song is a reference to the phenomenon known as terminal lucidity. Many Alzheimer's patients in their final moments suddenly gain back their memories in full. Unfortunately, they usually promptly pass away afterwards. Medical experts aren't really sure why this happens, and how the dying brain is able to regain so much lost data. As the song fades out, it's followed by 1 minute of silence, symbolizing a funeral procession. Everywhere at the End of Time, for many, has been an eye-opening experience. It offers an important perspective on a very misunderstood mental condition that plagues hundreds of thousands of people. Music is a powerful storytelling tool, and can tug at your heartstrings in ways something visual could never do. Many of us don't think about how important our memories are to us as individuals. They help mold our thinking and shape us into the people we are today, and the thought of one day losing them is more terrifying than death itself. If you have time in your day, I highly recommend listening to this album all the way through. It's no simple task, listening through 6.5 hours of Dementia music, but I guarantee you'll walk away with a new perspective on life, and how precious it is. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and may the ballroom remain eternal.